Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Andrew Gums with episode 43 of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersurgery. I'm happy to be here with our next guest. We had some difficulties getting all in the same time zone, but we're finally all in the same time zone. So I'll let Dr. Grasso introduce our next guest, but this is just to remind everybody that this is the podcast for the journal Artificial Intelligence Surgery, the first journal dedicated exclusively to artificial intelligence and surgery. So, Dr. Grasso, please introduce our next guest.
Sure. Thanks. This is very exciting. We have a very interesting guest, Dr. Zain Khalpey, who's a surgeon. He's at the very interesting health system in HonorHealth in Arizona, I believe. He's got a lot of interesting background and credentials, trained in UK, trained here, trained at Brigham's, and he's doing innovation and technology. And so he's a kindred spirit. So thank you, Dr. Khalpey, for being on our podcast. And please let our audience know a little bit more about you. And then we'll get into our banter. Thank you for joining on Saturday.
And I like to go way back. I want to understand where that accent came from. Okay.
So honestly, a privilege. I can take you back to when I was sitting in. My dad was an ambassador. I grew up in Africa actually, so it was quite interesting.
Where in Africa?
In Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so like lots of these state ministers and everything were coming to the house, and it was an interesting childhood. And
correct me if I'm wrong. So were you born in Rhodesia?
Southern Rhodesia, yes.
Southern, okay.
Yeah, and my dad actually naturalized too then as a Southern Rhodesian in Zimbabwe, and then became the ambassador to Transkei. And Transkei was this country that just got swallowed up by South Africa. And so it was a really cool upbringing. And then went to Catholic school. I went to Jewish school.
Well, I hate to keep interrupting you, but
go ahead. Yeah.
Did you say it was a real cruel upbringing or cool upbringing?
Well, if you're talking about corporal punishment in the Catholic school, it was perfect. And if you're talking about cool, it was it was really nice to see how poverty in Africa as you're growing up, and then you see what happens today in for example, the Middle East and refugees and lots of other things which I'm sure we'll talk about. And you realize your humble beginnings, and you realize what you need to do, and so life becomes clearer. And so I think despite all the cool tech that we play with, there's those sounds of humility that come from your childhood, which make you ground you to who you are. And that was a very important part of my life. And then also having the very best education. I had a lot of Jewish friends, I had a lot of Muslim friends, had a lot of Hindu friends, so it was a very eclectic group. And then I left to go to boarding school in Winchester College in the United Kingdom, and that was really lovely because it was a bit of a culture shock coming into from a developing country into a first world country. And then after that, went into medical school at Guy's and St. Thomas's in London, and that kind of was the formative years of having fun. And as I'm sure you guys did at Yale, and I think it was very insightful to see different cultures. It was very cosmopolitan medical school. It was also very avant-garde because they were trying to fuse a lot of new techniques in education and learning, and how that played into how people think about nuance in, there's a huge pathology museum at Guy's Hospital, and we used to always go and study in there and play, and, learning about the Potts spine and knowing that Potts was at Guy's was phenomenal. So just feeling that sense of history in your presence was also humbling, and it also became, something really cool. And I knew then that I was thinking, surgery is going to be where I want to be, because it was quite appealing that you could fix things very quickly. And then, being in medical school, I always felt, I remember going out with a girl, and she always said, I said, I'm going to do I was pretty average in medical school, but in the final year, I said, I'm going to do all the prize exams. And she said,
Oh, the what
don't do too
exam?
many.
The what
All the
exam?
prize exams. The prize exams. You have specific prize exams for the University of London. And I said, I'm going to do 12 of them, despite just the regular finals. And she says, no, you can't do that. You're just average. And I took that very seriously. Yeah,
Yes.
she's no longer with me. So, and I got 9 out of the 12, and including the medal for surgery. So I felt it was really a powerful kind of waking up moment for me. And I said, maybe I can multitask, and I'm not that crazy. So I thought, well, then I said, okay, I want to do surgery. And I said, and I had some really amazing medical school friends. And I remember we were in Varadero in Cuba, soon after my, internship. Yeah. And I was waiting to hear about this really cool senior house officer job. And it was with Professor Samagdi Yakub. And he was he's the guy who did the first heart transplant and heart lung transplant in the UK. He was knighted by the Queen. It was very coveted position to have. And when I was in Cuba, I heard that I had the interview in 2 days. So I had to abandon the holiday, fly on Cuban Airlines back to London. But I got the job.
All right,
I got the job.
But mixed emotions on that flight back.
I know. After the strawberry daiquiris, we were fine, and we couldn't remember much of the trip, but it was good. That's when I started thinking formatively about cardiac surgery, and having one of the best minds in the world for me, and mentors that helped me grow. And so I said to him, look, I was doing pig to baboon heart transplants, and I was doing mismatches in metabolism, and that was my PhD. And I said, well, I want to go just not have an average PhD. I want to just go to the best places in the world to study the best things, just like you did for pancreatic, Andrew. And I said, all right, let's go to, I got a Winston Churchill scholarship, and I went to, and a medal, and I went to Mayo Clinic and in Rochester, out in the tundra in Minnesota. And I
Big
decided
sacrifice. I'm impressed.
I know, yeah. And so it was lovely, because it was a mixture, a very good mixture in a transplant biology lab of doing basic science and then translating that into large animal, pig to baboon, with Chris McGregor. And I was with a guy called Jeffrey Platt, who was a brilliant scientist, brilliant mind. And I remember going for a conference, and that's when I met my wife. And she's French. She was, and then I stalked her. And then we got married, and then she was in Boston at MIT. And so I said, okay, well, there's no point going back to the United Kingdom because I have it all set there. I have to rearrange my life. And I said, let's go to the Brigham. And I did this 1 year in ICU as a foreign special guy who gets abused.
Did they make you redo all of the exams, or were you given?
Yes.
Oh, did they make
so
you
I had to
do residency?
No,
also?
so I got credit for just coming over as a registrar, which is equivalent to
resident,
a resident junior fellow, kind of that level, and came in they gave me credit. I was the first one to do the fast track in a categorical program at the Brigham for the 4-3 for cardiac. So I got 2 years of credit, joined in the second year, loved it to pieces. And I was thinking, wow, Americans know how to operate and teach. And yeah, no, I was totally blown.
In cardiac surgery for sure. Yeah.
No, in general, because
Huh.
I was with Monica Bertagnoli, who's now the director of the NIH, and Atul Gawande was, I was his chief resident, and it was really fun to be with these people and actually get to understand what it's like to do a Whipple, but also, understand and the beauty of it, as well as the nuance and how close it is to cardiac, Andrew. So
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah, because it's very nuanced. It's very it's as close to pulsatile as I can get under the belly. Just kidding, Andrew. But I loved it. I loved it so much, and then I fell in love with cardiac. And Larry Cohn was a phenomenal friend to Magdi Yacoub, and he gave me a lot of opportunities. And I thought, I don't just want to be average caveman. I want to write, and so I published 7 papers in my first year, and that's when he gave me the categorical residency slot. And then I said, well, I want to do heart failure, and I love artificial hearts. And we did the first one at the Brigham when I was a fellow. And I said, no, that's it. I want to do artificial hearts and mechanical support and cardiogenic shock. And I flew, basically said, okay, but I need to be prepared. So I went to Columbia, to New York, to do a super fellowship and learn from my Japanese sensei, Yoshifumi Naka, and a lot of the Columbia guys, and I know you know some of them. And it was what a cool environment. I thought I could operate when I came out of the Brigham, but when I was at Columbia, I really learned how to operate, and it was humbling, and it was just that next level that you needed to be quasi-independent as a young independent surgeon. And
One thing I have to say though that I've noticed, and the reason I'm interrupting you is you prove my point perfectly, is what always impressed me the most about American surgeons. This is a bit of a generalization, but nonetheless, maybe because my father is an immigrant, is the immigrant surgeons who came, who were already fully trained and working surgeons who had to come back and redo their training. When they finished and were attendings, they were always the ones that blew me away. And you prove my point that is one of the great powers of America, or is it attracts the best from around the world. They have to retrain, relearn, and become even better. And that is you, my friend. I haven't seen you operate, but already from what I'm hearing, you are what impressed me the most about American surgeons.
Yes, I think that the doors, though, are closing on the immigrants, just like on every border. And you're losing, like when your dad came, when I came. One of the guys that I'm following the footsteps on is Tommy Mihalovic, who's the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic right now, and he's one of the foreign guys who's now the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. And but you also have a lot of friends on the way who help you and realize and see what you see. But you saw it from a different lens, though, Andrew. Your dad was worked his ass off, right? And then he became very famous in New York, and that's kind of you kind of were exposed to certain things that other people couldn't have been, and Dr. Grasso, you were in Mount Sinai and you saw a lot of things going on. And I feel that this perpetual sense of education and sense of humility has to be melded when you think you have a different background. And when you have a different background and you're exposed to really high-end temples of surgery that both you were in, and myself being fortunate enough to be that, makes you want to do things that are impossible and want to do things that are extraordinary, which is why I was excited to join this podcast. and I was excited to meet you guys, frankly.
Yeah, no, I mean that is an incredible journey. You know, one of the reasons I actually moved back to Europe, you know, I was born in America, but you know, I now live in Paris. I finally got my full French license approved, and you know, again, is I wanted to replicate a little bit of what I saw in the United States. All these people, you know, what they went through, and anyway, you know, we'll see if I made the right decision or not. But you know,
Well, I think that's a bold step because, you know, successful surgeon, triple Yale, really, you know, the people's surgeon and a good guy and easy to talk to, um, who then goes back into, and I think your wife's Italian, correct?
my
Um,
goodness, I'm impressed. You should have been a
yeah.
detective, my friend. I think you're,
No, I
you
was
know,
just listening to that one podcast that you guys had, which
okay,
I thought was
okay.
hilarious. And I was like, oh, these are cool guys. And I think, you know, just having that exposure to different cultures, different thoughts, different processes. You know, the Europeans came up with the AI Act, right? The
Yeah,
Americans haven't.
yeah,
The Europeans have GE marks, which are 5 to 10 years ahead of the FDA.
yeah,
Americans are intellectually suffocating our innovation. And that's the
absolutely,
problem I have. So I think bold
absolutely.
move. I can't go, you know, I have this romantic idea of going back to Cambridge to be working at Papworth.
Mhm.
But then I see the whole, it's not just one place. It's not just that place. It's the whole ecosystem that's messed up in the UK, and
Yeah,
education for doctors who are disgruntled. You know, in my AI lab, I have students coming across um, from Europe to my lab, from Japan, from everywhere, because I feel one, they need to be exposed, but two, it's the lack of opportunity that exists in Europe right now because everybody's in survival mode with the National Health Service in the UK. And you know, I'm not sure, but the my brother-in-law is a cardiologist in France, and my in-laws live in Montpellier,
yeah.
so we go every year. But you know, think it's a very jaded system which doesn't allow its full potential, like America. And America is still to some degree, a meritocracy where your dad did really well, where both you, Andrew,
Yeah.
Vincent, and Andrew, you and I have opportunities to push. And there's very few barriers which are not one, geopolitical, and two, ageist. I mean, you've got to wait until somebody dies in the UK before you get a
Oh,
tenure position.
absolutely. One of the reasons I waited as long to move as I did before moving back to Europe is I wanted to become fully trained. I was like, I'll blow my brains out if I stay as a young surgeon in Europe, I'll blow my brains out. But you know, every country is very different. You know, I'm very impressed with France. Actually, the young surgeons are very independent and they have a lot of freedom. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, I redid everything so I could be in France. I'm very impressed with actually the level of surgery and the freedom that even the young surgeons have. You know.
Yeah, so you know, one cool thing is, so just to finish my story and end up talking about France, is when I wanted to do artificial hearts, I wanted to come to the birthplace of artificial hearts, which is in Tucson, Arizona. And Jack Copeland built that empire. He did, you know, it was crazy. In 1984, I was sitting in Zimbabwe when I was a kid, and I saw the front page of a newspaper called the Chronicle. And on there was this picture of Barney Clark, the first guy to receive an artificial heart. And I
Mhm.
said, at that time, I wanted to be a pilot, right? And I was dreaming about Arizona and flying and learning how to fly. And I said, one day I'll go to Arizona. And I then went to the birthplace of it and was, you know, put my toe in his shoes and was running the program. And we did the first 50 baby CC artificial, 50 artificial heart in North America. And so I invited him 34 years after he put in his first one
Wow.
into the same room. And I said, look, I know how to do the artificial heart. I just want to have you there because it's your legacy and it's respect. And it was a beautiful moment. And we did this in 2016. And it was in a 17-year-old girl who eventually got a heart transplant.
Wow.
And I think, you know, that was cool. But the people in the world who did the most number of artificial hearts was in Paris. And he used to go to Jacob used to go to Paris frequently to teach them about artificial hearts, and it was really amazing to see the growth and the freedom, but also the forward thinking. And now you know, with Airbus funding the birth of a new artificial heart called, which Alain Carpentier piloted, we now have the first trials in the US. So just to segue from that into why AI, because I think it's a good moment. I think, you know, I had a stem cell lab at the University of Arizona, and I had a NASA grant, and the only reason for that was I wanted to build a bioreactor to grow new organs, and because my wife was pregnant, and I thought microgravity, and that's what the womb is, and these kids are floating around. And so we got this grant, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to decellularize human hearts and lungs and reseed them with patient stem cells? But when I did the SEMs and we did the bioreactors, you know, we're far away from that, a functional organ that way.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I thought, well, wet science and bench to bedside could take a lifetime. How can we affect millions of lives? And that would be through machine learning or AI.
How can we speed things up? Absolutely. Yeah.
Correct, Greg. So I'm like, this is annoying me.
Exponentially.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So during COVID, we got a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant, and my wife, who is the brains, and she was at MIT and was the director of the MIT Kuwait Institute. So when we go to Kuwait, I just carry the bags, and it was fantastic. So it was fun.
She's what did she do when she was at MIT?
She's a plasma physicist. I don't know what that means.
Oh my goodness, I think your children are gonna, I don't know, cure global warming or something.
Well, they're entirely carbon copies of her, and I think very lucky to have her in my life. And she's a remarkable lady, but she's a lot of the brains behind the AI enterprises that we do, and she is building large language models. But I'll get into that. But the cool thing is that when we came here, he created these algorithms for COVID, where you build a deep neural network for looking at chest X-rays, and then build an algorithm for function, which would be looking at saturations. And he noticed bias with Native Americans in the Native American populations, but also in the Hispanics, but also the Caucasian, and realized these are not translatable. And that was, I think, what excited me most, and said, let me ditch the wet bench and let's build an AI ecosystem that would grow. And that's how I started getting into it. And when we were on a holiday in Hawaii, I was really bored one afternoon. I said, you know, I can't build this damn app because I've got to speak to these guys in India who don't have a clue about what I'm doing, or in the Middle East or Ukraine. And, you know, I'm just going to learn how to code. So I taught myself how to code, and I'm like, oh, thank God. So now I can, you know, understand the back end and the translation and the front end and the user experience, and say, okay, let's do something now. And then I said, okay, well, let's do something bigger than that. So I said, I came to Scottsdale. We moved from Tucson to Scottsdale, which is like a little village, to going to
outside of Phoenix, right? Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's an hour away, and then now I'm living in Scottsdale, and started meeting all these really cool. It was my wife's idea to move. It's because it's kind of like the new Silicon Valley, but without the poison and toxicity, and stupidity. So it's.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, no, I'm not afraid to say it. But I think it's a cool place to be, because in a fertile 6-hospital system with about 3 to 6 million patients, and I'm the chief medical AI officer. And I thought, well, now you know, operating every day, but I can influence and create and innovate, and it's a new idea and translate. So we're building an AI model here, but also looking at the whole ecosystem from leadership down to what we do in pre-op, intra-op, and post-op, and we're using cardiac as a pilot in the OR. So,
Vincent, I think we found our West Coast equivalent of Hartford Hospital, right? Vincent is a research professor at the University of New Mexico. You're in Los Alamos,
oh, cool.
Vincent? Yeah,
We're in
so
Albuquerque. Yeah.
Albuquerque. So that's good. So how far of a trip is
Wow.
that between Scottsdale and Albuquerque? Because it sounds like next time you're out there, you're gonna have to go visit Zain.
Yeah, Zain,
Yeah.
I'll be out there at the end of the month, so I'm hoping to be able to impose on you for some of your very limited time to stop
Not
and
at
connect,
all. I will make
which I
the
love.
time. I will
Scottsdale
make
is
the time.
amazing, Andrew. It's the Camelback Mountains are in the background there, and it's just this jewel
I did an
desert.
integrative medicine fellowship at the University of Arizona in Tucson with
Yeah.
you know, and I had so I know Tucson very well. The reason I say that is I've flown to Phoenix, and you know we drive through
Yeah.
Scottsdale to get down to Tucson. So I've been there many times. It's beautiful there. It's hot as hell, but it's beautiful. And let me just put it this way: not only is the scenery beautiful down there, I'll leave it at that.
No, it's a stunning place, and we've still got a house there, so we're trying to get rid of it. It's like a white elephant. But in Scottsdale, it's a really cosmopolitan city. I think you'll
Oh,
have
you're
fun.
talking about you saw
So
the house
just
down in Tucson.
yeah, yeah.
Oh no, well, the true beautiful, the other beautiful things I was talking about are in the Phoenix area. But anyway,
Oh gosh, yeah. No, absolutely.
you must know what I'm talking about. So anyway, um, if not, I'll tell you offline. Um,
Yeah.
so in the 7 minutes we have before we have to go, because our time is going to be up soon, and we know you're on call and a busy man. So you are interested mainly in artificial hearts, or are you interested in creating transgenic hearts ultimately? What is your goal right now?
So with the background in pig to baboon heart transplants, I think that's um, exciting, but very far away from reality to being off-the-shelf hearts. Already, heart transplants are happening with Heart in a Box, where you're using DCD organs, and that's pretty cool.
What
But
kind of organs?
donors after cardiac death organs.
Okay.
So instead of brain death,
Yeah.
when you have brain death, there's a neurohumoral response. The organs marinate in a lot of catecholamines, whereas cardiac death, as soon as they die, you can immediately harvest them, and the organs are actually better. And they may be dying for other reasons. So and there's good, mass strict protocols for DCD, which people are using now. And so you can put them in a box with the heart beating. We were involved in that trial when I was in Colombia, and now it's taken off, where you have a heart in a box sitting on a shelf, and literally you don't have to go and harvest the heart; it gets flown to you. So things are changing. Just about organ harvesting. I'm also the global director for AI strategies at an organization called Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. And we're working with Senator Kelly using AI to work on the border for organs that are being harvested from migrants, which is a very dark form of human trafficking.
Oh Lord.
And so, yeah, I just had to say that because of what we do. But I think that, I'm also the director of the Artificial Heart Program here, where we're building cardiogenic shock, ECMO, which we have already, and we're doing LVADs, and then we'll bridge to total artificial heart as we grow the program. But, I think that's just part of my regular life. The cool part of what I want to do is use artificial intelligence to make early diagnosis, predictive diagnostics, go into omics, and build this whole ecosystem where we can translate. And I also do robotic cardiac.
Perfect.
I know automation is your next question.
Close.
Or are you doing robotics, Andrew?
Well, I wanted, we have 4 minutes, so I'm going to try to get this talked about. So I'm actually curious, let's start with where your father is from originally. Where was he? Was he born also in Rhodesia?
No, he's of Indian origin, but
Where in India?
he's first generation, just outside of Bombay.
Bombay. Okay. So
But my
there's
mum and dad met and got married in London.
So there is a company that you should know, maybe you do know, called SS Innovations. They make a robot. It's designed by Sudhir Srinivasa, who has the largest robotic cardiac case series in the world. He's done over 1,000 cardiac hearts. So it's an Indian, it's originally they were in America. They did their training over, he did his training, everything, and he worked with Cooley in Texas, and basically started building a robot, and now they've transferred it into India, and it's a heart built specifically for cardiac surgeons. It's a robot built specifically for cardiac surgeons. It's called the Mantra. So
I've seen that on LinkedIn, some posts. Brilliant videos.
Yeah. No, so it's a beautiful robot. In the spirit of full disclosure, I'm actually a sub-distributor or a distributor for it in kind of the former Soviet Union region, like in Turkey, Ukraine, and Israel, Bahrain, and the Stan regions. And it's a robot that you should learn about, because you're also socially conscious, and one of their missions is to provide a much less expensive robot, to be quite honestly, so that more people can benefit from robotic surgery. But some of the things that they have on the horizon for cardiac surgery in particular, I think you would absolutely love. I think one day it's going to be what I'm about to say is a tough sell, but I'm going to say it anyway. But one day you might be doing robotic transplants, and heart transplants. The reason that is not insane, what I just said, is because I don't know if you know, but you know that they're putting in liver transplants robotically now, right?
And kidney, and also lung. And Magdi Yacoub did the first live lung transplant.
Wow.
So the tech is our future, and I think those robots that I've seen videos of, the Mantra in particular, are brilliant. And I actually texted the chap on LinkedIn, and I'm sure he's quite busy because it's going off the scales. But the videos are, I think, the technical facility of those robots and are sophisticated.
You're using the Da Vinci right now?
Yes, we're just getting a Da Vinci 5, which I was playing with, which is, it's like the iPhone 14 going to an iPhone 15.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah.
There you go. So,
yeah, no,
but I'd love to look at another platform.
Yeah, the Mantra isn't FDA approved, but I think if you ever go to India, I'm going to have you stop by the factory in New Delhi. They're great guys. You're gonna love the father. He's an excellent robotic cardiac surgeon. He's fascinating guy. I think you'd really, like I said, you're socially conscious, and it's one of the reasons you're going to get along with them so well. So we have 1 minute left. Vincent, I'm going to let you close this fascinating podcast. We're obviously going to have you on again, Zain, because I think unfortunately for you, we could talk to you for hours. So Vincent, go ahead.
Yeah, my head is spinning from doing a lot of the listening. We'll need to follow up, and hopefully you'll allow me to stop by on my way out to Albuquerque.
It'll be a privilege. It's not a question.
I think
you have to.
This is going to be a very interesting podcast for our audience, because we touched on a lot of things, and we need to learn more about all the cool AI stuff you're doing. And it sounds like you're a full technology stack developer in that you've learned yourself, which we talked about all the time, having our physician friends learning tech, and sometimes you have to teach yourself. It's just how it is. So episode 43, thanks very much, Dr. Khalpey. We'll see you soon, and best wishes to everyone.
My privilege. Thank you.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Have a great call.
Super. Okay? Have a great call. Thanks for your time today.
Guys.